Did you know that English country dance is a form of social folk dance that originated in Renaissance England? We'll discuss this and other interesting facts about the history of dance with Renée Camus on this episode of The Curious Professor. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. B. Welcome to the Curious Professor podcast, where I take listeners on a journey of discovery to explore the people, places, artifacts, and natural wonders that spark my curiosity. On this episode of the Curious Professor podcast, we'll discuss the journey from dance history to pop culture with Renée Camus. But first, a trivia question. The waltz is a popular dance that originated in the 17th century from which city? I'll have the answer for you at the end of this episode. I'm thrilled to have Renée Camus on the show today. Renée is a dancer, writer, and teacher who has taught many styles of dance, including English country dance, English and Appalachian clogging, Irish step dancing, Morris, ballroom, swing, and historical dance styles, especially those from the Victorian and ragtime eras. She has a bachelor's degree in musical theater from the University of Michigan and a master's degree in dance history from American University. She founded and directed her own dance company dedicated to preserving and presenting historical social dance called Centuries Historical Dance. She also produced the DVD Dancing Through the Centuries, Dawn of a New World, serving as a writer, director, narrator, choreographer, and dancer. Renée has taught at colleges and dance studios and at many dance camps around the country, and she recently began writing her own English country dances. As a writer, she's been published in Los Angeles Times, Los Angeles Magazine, LA Weekly, Entertainment Weekly, New York Observer, The Toast, and Nikki Swift. She also co-founded and runs the San Gabriel Valley Women's Writers Group. When I learned about Renée's unique background, my curiosity was immediately piqued and I wanted to learn more. I hope this interview with Renée will spark your curiosity too. Welcome to the show, Renée. It's great to have you here.
Excellent. I'm excited to be here.
Tell me what the most unique thing about you is.
I guess I dance, but I do specifically I do a lot of English country dancing, and I've done a lot of historical dancing. Although I took a long break from it, so I've forgotten a lot of stuff. But so I'm focusing more on English country dancing right now, and I've also done some clogging and step dancing and things like that.
So what got you interested in dance?
I've always been interested in dance. My parents are musicians who fortunately dance a little bit socially. And so that was always an important thing to them. And they've been very supportive of me and encouraging arts in my life, of course, because they are artists as well. So I started doing ballet, or if you can call it ballet, at age 5, and then started doing English country dancing. Not that I really knew what it was, but at 8, when I was 8, because my parents took me to this camp in Massachusetts called Pinewoods, which is still there. It's still running. And it's an amazing place. And we were doing English country dancing and contra dancing, American contra dancing, and other things like that, kind of folk styles. And I was a kid, so I didn't really know what the differences were, but I was doing it and it was fun and it was an amazing, kind of set my life on that path.
And that's what you studied when you were in college and graduate school as well.
To some extent. It's not like you can find, it's not like they teach that in school, or they sort of do, but like a lot of kids complain, I think, about doing square dancing in 6th grade or whatever, and they hate it for whatever reason. And I always loved it, of course, but it's not like a field of study per se. Although I do have my master's degree is in dance, and I kind of made it a dance history degree. So yeah. My bachelor's actually is in musical theater, which I also love.
I love musical theater too, although I'm not talented in a lot of ways in singing and dancing, although I enjoy doing it.
That's good. Yeah, no, everyone can love it. I love it.
Yeah, my husband's a big fan of musical theater as well.
Yay.
What are some aspects of dance history that you find most fascinating?
What I love about dance history in general is just how it reflects. I mean, in a way, this seems like such an obvious answer, but how it reflects what's happening at the time. How it reflects the cultural and societal and economic factors that were happening at whatever time it was. That's always been so interesting to me, and it still is, and it's still changing. Things are still changing.
So how would you say the dances of this era are reflective of our times?
Well, one of the big discussion topics that is happening now in English country dance, for example, is the language that we use. And the language was always very gendered in the way it was described, explaining how to do certain dances. It was always very gendered. So, and not just, that changes too. Like at first it was women, then it became girls, then it became, whatever. But also, for example, for a while in the middle, you had first man and second woman turn right hands or whatever. Before that, you had first man turn his partner once round by the right hand or whatever. Now we're trying to move totally away from that. I mean, a lot of people are trying to move totally away from that to do non-gendered or gender role-free terminology and say things like first corners turn by the right or whatever it is. So you're addressing, not only are you taking the gender out of the instructions, but you're talking to more people at once. It's called global positioning or global terminology or positional calling. Pardon me. And it's so you're talking to everyone at once because first corners addresses every person who is a first corner. And then it's ideally it's more welcoming, to people of all genders or no genders.
Right. So, and you wouldn't necessarily have to have a male and female partner either.
Right. You can, and we've always, I shouldn't say always, I'm only so years old, but it's always been important for a lot of dance communities for people to dance with any partner they want. Women can dance with other women, men can dance with other men, although they don't as often. But they do, and mostly because there was always a gender imbalance in terms of people who were at the dances. There were almost always more women than men at these things, perhaps not surprising. So women would have to dance with other women, or they just don't dance, and who wants that, So we've been very free about allowing people to dance any role with any person, but we're trying to encourage that even more now, and to just sort of get rid of those gender roles altogether. So, it's much more inclusive, but there are certainly dance communities where they're a little more traditional, or they're just not used to it, or they don't know the skill yet, and they don't, or maybe don't want to learn or are afraid to learn. Who knows? I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but there's, it's a big discussion because not everybody is comfortable with or ready to do that yet. So it's interesting though.
What would you say to someone who was interested in learning how to dance later in life, but maybe thought it was too late to get a start?
It is never too late. It's never too late for anything. I would say it's never too late. But also I would say that English country dancing is one of the more accessible dance styles, especially for older people. And we do have a lot of older people, although there's one group that I dance with who has they get a lot of young people in it. It's really amazing. It's fantastic. They do a lot of costuming, and I think that's part of the attraction there. But it's because it's basically, English country dance specifically is basically walking. It's just walking through space. There are certain dances or figures where you might want to use a skipping step, which is obviously more energy consuming, but you don't have to. And even if people around you are skipping, you don't have to. So it's very, very accessible.
You describe yourself as a pop culture junkie with a geek flavored bent. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I do. I have a very, very old blog that I'll be honest, haven't written on in a long time. But it's called Geek Adjacent. Because I love pop culture. I love music. I love movies. I love musical theater, as we talked about. I love television. There's so much television, and I love a lot of it. Um, and I like some geek, quote unquote, geek things, what you might consider geek things, but I also don't. I mean, in a way, it's sort of based on stereotypes, I suppose, because the things that you consider like uber geek, like comic books, for example, I'm not really interested in. I don't really read comic books. I think I read one once, or I've read a couple, but I don't know how to do it. I'm not used to reading in panels, and I think there's a skill to it, and I'm actually a terrible reader to begin with. I'm embarrassed to say, but I only like 3-4 years ago got into reading at all, which is embarrassing to say, but that's just, I've always been busy doing music and dancing and stuff. So
Well, how important do you feel it is to be a consumer, a reader, because now that you've moved into writing? Do you see a parallel between those two things?
absolutely. Yeah, I do. And that is part of why I started reading more, because I wanted to write more. And then as soon as I started reading, this is probably going to sound totally misguided, but as soon as I started reading some fiction novels, I was like, I could totally do this. I could write a book, I think. I mean, and not in a cocky way, but just in a sort of, okay, I see how this is, this is not so bad. And I've written a couple of things, but I haven't published anything. I haven't gotten past the editor phase, which is terrible, or the editing phase. So I need to focus on that.
So, what aspects of pop culture interest you the most?
I'm going to tell this story. I'm not sure why, but the part of, and also because it sort of relates to the whole geek adjacent thing. One of the things that when I was younger, I didn't watch a lot of television because, like I said, I was always out doing, dancing or whatever, singing or whatever. And I watched a couple of things, but I think I also had an attitude about it. I had a kind of a, I was a snob. And so I watched Fame, for example, and one or two other things, and but I wasn't into a lot of stuff. And then when in 2000, the early 2000s, I discovered Buffy the Vampire Slayer because of the musical episode, because of Once More with Feeling, basically. And my friend had a little gathering where she showed it to a bunch of people, and most everybody there was seeing it for the umpteenth thousand time, but my husband and I were seeing it for the first time. And I was so blown away. I was like, this is amazing. We have to go back and watch it from the beginning, and the series. And we did. And it changed television for me. It really did. It really honestly did, because they had this whole storyline, where you had a big bad throughout the whole season. And yes, there were episodic things about it, but it still grew over the whole season. And I feel like Buffy was the first show, at least for me, that ever really did that. And it was mind-blowing. And we binged the first season and a half in about 3 days, which is not something that people did then. This was before, Netflix and the whole era of binge watching. This was a while ago. And so we went through it in about 3 days, and then, spoiler, Angel kills Jenny. And I felt like my world just fell apart. Like I was I still remember it. We were so just flabbergasted and upset, so upset that it was just like, oh, I was gutted. And then we watched it again a couple of years ago, and it was just laughable the way it comes off now, because he's just such, I don't know, it's just, there were some things that happened that just seem, unrealistic now. Although I generally, I think the show still holds up really, really, really well. But that really changed television for me. And then ever since then, pretty much, I've been a total junkie.
People say that we're in an era of peak television, or a golden age of television, where more people are consuming now Netflix-style television series, limited series, more so than feature-length films. What are some of the shows that are really capturing your interest right now?
Oh my God. sometimes easier to say what's not captured. We just finished Severance, first season of Severance, which was amazing. Oh my gosh, the finale was so tense and so exciting and so like, what's going to happen? And now we have to wait a year or whatever for the next season. So I'm a huge fan of Dexter. Which is very weird for me because I never liked horror. I hate horror. I don't do blood or gruesome stuff. Although, to be honest, my favorite musical is Sweeney Todd, so that kind of falls apart. But no, I think with Dexter, I love the whole vigilante ism of him. He's a bad guy who does things for sort of good reasons, quote unquote. So and I started rewatching it again because of the New Blood, the reboot, which was fun. It wasn't everything I hoped it would be, but it was a better ending than their original ending, which was terrible.
That ending was so disappointing. After watching that for show, like you, I didn't think I would enjoy it, and I ended up loving it. But the ending was so disappointing after being invested in that show and that character for so long. It was.
You're talking about, sorry, New Blood or
no, Dexter, the original Dexter series, that finale before they rebooted it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was so disappointing. It was so disappointing. And I feel like I'm fairly lenient, if you will. I liked the 8th season. Not as much as the seasons before it, but there were things about the 8th season that I really liked, and other people were like pooping on it from the beginning. But then the finale was terrible. Like the beginning of the finale, not even the whole lumberjack thing, which was ridiculous, but the beginning of the finale in the hospital was just asinine, if I can say that. Yeah, it was very disappointing.
Yeah. Total agreement. That's why I'm hesitant of watching the reboot. To be honest, I haven't ventured into that yet, but I may now that you're saying it's.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. There were things I found a little disappointing about it at the end, but it's just so much fun to have him back on our screen again. That's the honest thing about it. It's a reboot. I was thinking about this because there was something in Entertainment Weekly, a little tiny thing about reboots and how this one was the most popular. And I think of all the reboots they talked, at least the 5 or 6 that they mentioned there, it was like a little graph. It wasn't even a story. But anyway, that one, Dexter New Blood, was the only one with the original cast members in it. Oh, and wow. That's a huge reason, I think, why people enjoyed it, because it was Michael C. Hall back as Dexter again, and it was great. So,
what aspects of popular culture do you think that you are most interested in writing about?
One thing that I kind of want, okay, so first of all, I write for my job. I write about pop culture for my job, but I write for a publication called Nikki Swift, which is it's a gossip magazine. And then I started writing for one of their sister publications called Looper, which is more geek-oriented, superheroes and stuff like that. And I've only written for them about a week already. I just started. But I'm enjoying that a little bit more because it's a little bit more what I'm interested in, I think. And often with Nikki Swift, I have to write about reality TV, which I don't really watch at all. I watch sometimes performance or talent-based reality shows. Like occasionally I'll watch Dancing with the Stars. I used to watch Dancing So You Think You Can Dance, and Making It is a great show, stuff like that. But the sort of, I'm trying to figure out how to say it. The stuff like the Real Housewives of whatever, I don't watch any of that stuff, But okay, so I do write a lot for my job. But as far as stuff, and I don't have to pitch there, they just tell me what to write. And so in a lot of ways, that's easier. I should pitch some of my own stuff more. And what I kind of like writing about, which sounds terrible maybe, are pet peeves, little things that I notice that are kind of annoying to me. So one thing I've wanted to write about, and I sort of put up did a draft a long time ago and then haven't gone back to it, is this idea often where people, like there will be a couple who, boy, this may be too complicated. There'll be a couple who is not a couple, but, they're sort of getting close to each other, and you think maybe it's a romance there or not, even if they're not even at all, like they wouldn't be together for any reason. and then they sort of spend a nice night, or they kind of get closer, they chat, they drink, whatever, maybe they kiss, and then bam, it's the next morning and they've slept together. And I like, where did this come from? Didn't they have any thoughts, about what they're doing, or why, or maybe we shouldn't do this, or there was a new show called Pivoting, a new comedy, which I liked a lot. I really liked it a lot, and it was very fun. But in the finale, I think the premise is these three best friends of a woman who died, right? One of the best friends is hanging out with the husband. She is gay. There's no indication that she's bi. She is gay. And they get drunk and they sleep together. She sleeps with the husband of the dead friend. And I'm like, wouldn't you have any? I mean, like, I don't drink, but does drinking make you black out that much, that instantly, that you don't think at all about what you're, I mean, like, it just seems so unrealistic, and I hate it. It's one of my little pet peeves. So hopefully that answers the question, but that's just one of the things that I've been thinking about.
So maybe have a pet peeves column.
Yeah. Oh, I could. That's an interesting idea. I do like that.
Because there's certainly a lot of things that bother a lot of people about TV and movies.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I have a list of about like 45 little movie things that, I don't know if they would be column worthy by themselves, but, things like when people drive on TV and they do not look at the road, that stuff like that. And there are never any red lights, things like that. It's fun though.
I could see that being its own, even a blog on its own. Pet peeves of movies and TV, or even add books to it too. Just media.
Yeah.
The pet peeves of media. There's a lot of them.
Oh, there are so many. There are. I'd have to read more books. I mean, I wouldn't be afraid to touch books because I don't read enough of them. But
I'm sure you could find enough in TV shows and movies to have your blog. Well, you just said you had 45 ideas. That's enough for a year if you do one a week.
That's true. That's true. Oh my gosh. Oh, yeah, that's fun.
All right, so I'll look for that coming up soon.
I should revive my blog. It's been a long time. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. So I noticed that you were doing stand-up comedy.
Oh, gosh.
I know. I do a lot of investigation of my guests.
Yeah.
So tell us more about how that came about.
Oh, gosh. I've only done it once. I only did it the one time. But, of course, I put it on my website because I don't know why, because it was fun. It was interesting. It was 5 years ago or something like that, and I'm not sure why. I just sort of decided. I mean, it may have been more than that. But I'm here in LA. I've been in LA almost 10 years now, which is shocking to me. But I'm not from here. I'm from the East Coast, and so this is my first time living here. And just being here in LA, like the joke that everyone has a screenplay, it's true. And so in a lot of ways, stand-up comedy seemed like a thing to do. But also I think I wanted to learn more about how to write funny, how to write comedy, and I still don't really know how. It was a great class. It was really fun. Lisa Sunstedt, I'm not saying her name right. Sunstedt. I think that's it. Lisa Sunstedt is the teacher, and she's still teaching, and she's great. And she has a class called Pretty Funny Women, and it's all women in the class, which is fantastic. So I don't know if she's doing it on Zoom or anything like that, but if you're in LA, definitely look her up. She's great. And it was a fun class. What's difficult for me, I think, about comedy is that she wanted me to sort of exaggerate certain things, and I find it difficult to stray from the truth that much.
But yeah, you want to write fiction, so there you go.
I know. Well, at that time, I hadn't written any fiction at all. So my fiction writing is really only in the last 3-4 years, maybe. So,
well, I can see as you get more into writing fiction, you may want to revisit being able to stray from the truth in your storytelling, more of your own personal storytelling to embellish it more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I might need to, because like in some ways I want to write memoir and I forget so much of what happened. So then you have to fill in the blanks somehow. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what's next for you? What are you most excited about right now?
Well, frankly, just that we're getting things back and running again, I mean, that's the thing, of course, about English country dancing or any kind of dancing, is that we haven't really been able to do it, at least not not in person, for a while. I did some dancing over Zoom during the pandemic. I taught some classes. I taught some clogging classes, and I taught an English country dance technique, style and technique is what I called it, thinking that that's something more and more that we don't necessarily work on. There's been more lately, the last several years, there's been more of a focus on learning dances, learning different choreographies, we'll call them, or sequences, and not learning how to dance well. And I figured, since we can't get together anyway, we might as well focus on that. So I did a style and technique class for English country dance, which was fun. It was small, but we had a pretty, mighty group of regular attendees, which was really nice. So I did some of that over Zoom, but it's not the same, obviously, as being with another person and taking hands with them and all that, and interacting and all that sort of stuff. So we've been doing, we're finally getting back into that again, and I'm very glad. And I dance with a group who's actually started dancing since June, which is amazing. But then the group that I do most of my calling with, we have not started yet, and we're hoping to start maybe in May if we can get things going, but there's some red tape we have to deal with. So
yeah, it's like we're moving out of the pandemic, but not quite to the point where everyone feels as comfortable maybe as we were pre-pandemic.
And that's something that I struggle with a little bit too. I feel bad about too, because there are people who are, immunocompromised, or who just don't feel comfortable, and they don't want to come back. I don't know if they ever want to come back. And so they're, some people are trying to do hybrid things where they are in person but still over Zoom, and it's complicated, obviously. And I mean, considering my group never did Zoom, like I did some Zoom things on my own, but the group that I'm talking about didn't at all. So it's not like they expect us to do anything different. But it's a question that's, that needs consideration, and I'm not sure personally what to do about it. So,
so where can listeners find out more about you?
Oh, well, my website, I have a website that I've been trying to revamp for a while, but it still works. It's my name. So Renée Camus, ReneeCamus.com. And I've got some writing and editing kind of stuff on there, and a link to my blog, of course. And then I've got some of my dances on there. I've been writing or choreographing English country dances lately too, which is super fun. I really enjoy doing that. So, because it's a living tradition, a lot of the dances that we did are from the 1600s or leading up to now, but then people still write dances today. And so I've been writing some dances, and so those are on there too, the finished ones. And then I have a blog, which I haven't, as I said, I haven't updated in a while, but it's called geek-adjacent.com. So.
Which you'll be updating with your pet peeves.
Yeah, maybe. Now I have to.
It was great to have you on the show, Renée. Thank you so much for taking time to be a guest on the Curious Professor podcast.
Thank you so much. It was so fun.
And now for the answer to this episode's trivia question. The waltz is a popular dance that originated in the 17th century from which city? The form of waltz that we know today originated in Vienna, Austria, and was once considered scandalous due to its close hold and fast-turning movements. We'll end the show with something punny. Where do fortune tellers go to dance? A crystal ball. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Curious Professor podcast. If there's a person, place, artifact, or natural wonder that has sparked your curiosity and you'd like for me to feature it on the show, please let me know. My website is thecuriousprofessorpodcast.com. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe to the Curious Professor podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like to become part of my community of curiosity seekers, be sure to visit my website, thecuriousprofessorpodcast.com, and join Dr. B's Hive. Until next time, always be learning and be curious with Dr. B.